Hey guys, today we are going to be working on a UMK422 Honda weed eater. This is a 4-stroke weed eater. It has not been serviced in quite some time. True story, I bought this for my wife for a Mother's Day gift probably 15 to 20 years ago, and it has been a trooper ever since. So we'll get started. Now, I just didn't run out and buy her a weed eater. She actually asked me for one, so that's what I got her. And since I worked at a Honda motorcycle dealer that also sold power equipment, this is what she got, and it's been a good one. Like I say, we've had this for at least 15 years, and I would bet 20. This is a first generation UMK422, so you can kind of tell by the spark plug that it's been a bit. So anyway, plugs out. Take the air filter case off here. Comes off that easily. And then we're going to remove this housing, and to get down to the valves, we're going to adjust the valves on this thing. So we'll take an 8mm wrench and we'll start removing this. Just kind of lay our bolts about where they were. Like I say, we've had this for a long time, and I don't think we've ever adjusted the valves on it. It's had some regular maintenance, so to speak. Oil changes every year, that kind of stuff. And outside of that, not a ton. Now, in the last few years, we actually bought a lighter weed eater, and my wife uses that around the house here. And we take this one down to my mother-in-law's house, and it lives there. So it doesn't get the use it used to. But that's only been over the last couple of years. For the first at least 15 years, this was the only weed eater we had, and my wife loves to run a weed eater. It's just one of her things. Everything has to be trimmed, neat, and tidy. She'd rather I mow and she weed eat, so that's the way it works around this house. Right or wrong, that's the way it is. Doesn't matter if we have a riding mower or a walk behind mower. She doesn't want to run it. She just wants to weed eat. So that's what we do. All right, we got to get this throttle cable off here. It attaches to the housing, so we will back that nut off just a little bit. Pull that up out of there and hook it. Kind of like that. Let me get a pick here. Pop that up out of there. And that'll get that loose from us. Unhook our kill wire. Now I'm going to pop this off the bolts at the front and pull it up and off here. Like that. Rocker arms are under here, and that's where we're going to adjust the valves. Take off this crankcase breather hose, move the spark plug wire out of the way, and we'll take these out. They're also 8mm. So we'll use our same wrench here. Now, I did spray this down with some contact cleaner because it was a filthy mess. This cover had been leaking up here, but that's about all I've done to this thing. Note there's one short bolt on this side and two longer ones over on the other side. Yeah. There we are. And this is the adjusters, our rocker arms, and our valves. And if we run this around, this is the exhaust valve. You can see it's going down now, and then shortly after will be the intake valve. And after the intake valve goes, we're going to watch our piston. You can actually see it down in the hole. I'm going to stick this in here. Do not be very careful when you're doing this. And I'm going to bring this thing up to top dead center. You can hurt your piston or the spark plug threads. So if you don't have a very good idea what you're doing, shine a flashlight in there and just look. You can see the piston in there. Then we're going to take a feeler gauge. These adjust to about 0.10 and 0.12 millimeters. Now, I've been working in the motorcycle business for 30 years, and I deal exclusively with Japanese bikes. So you ask me what these are in English terms, American terms, I don't really know. A good buddy of mine that I've worked with and known for years, we always have an argument about that. He's always doing stuff in inch terms, and I always do everything in metric terms. And the two of us, we can never agree when it comes time to actually do any kind of adjustments on anything, because I do everything in metric and he does everything in inches. I figure since this stuff was made in a country that's done metric for many, many years, then that's probably what we ought to go with. All right, what we're doing here is we're going to turn this screw until we get just a little bit of drag on this feeler gauge. Now I'm going to go to just a little heavier drag, because when I tighten this nut right here up, it's going to pull this bolt up and increase our valve clearance. And this is the exhaust. We want about 0.12 on it. That's, once again, millimeters, not inches. And we'll tighten that down. There's probably a torque spec on that, but what you really need to know is it's a very small bolt on a very small rocker arm, so it does not need to be super duper tight. Just tighten the thing up. This one's a little loose. I'm going to drop down to a 0.10 millimeter for this. There it is. We'll stick it in there, and indeed, she is a bit loose. So we will do the same thing on the intake here. Let me find my wrench. Alrighty. Loosen this up, and we're going to adjust this with the feeler gauge in place, like so, until we get a good amount of drag on it. It's there, but when we tighten this up, once again, it's going to get looser. That just be the way things work. And we have a nice drag on that one. We have a nice drag on that one. Now, I like to roll these things around, roll the crankshaft around, and let the valves go through their stroke a couple of times, and then come back to top dead center again. And then I'll check them again just to make sure that's where we're at. Once again, that's top dead center. We'll check this one. We got a nice drag on a 0.10 millimeter. And we'll go to 0.12 for the exhaust. That's got a nice drag on it too. So that's all we got to do with that. Those valves are adjusted. Now we're going to scrape the rest of this gasket here off. And I've got a new gasket for this because I just like using new gaskets on everything I can. And we'll scrape off some of this sealer stuff. Kind of like so. Get the big chunks up out of there. That's pretty good. Let me grab a scraper here and kind of clean this little area up. It's so tiny, it's kind of cute to work on. This is probably, yeah, I'd say this is the smallest valves I've ever adjusted. I've adjusted valves on QA50s and Z50s and all that stuff, but these are smaller than that. Couldn't tell you the exact displacement of this engine. It's a GX22 Honda 4-stroke engine. So whatever it is what this is. Now, like I say, I got a new gasket. So we're going to put our gasket in place. Line up everything. There's a dowel pin right there. And then it's got a hole over here that goes in. There's a dowel right there. So it has to be on these two in order to set down on there right. Like so. Make sure it goes down over our little dowels there. And that's setting down pretty good. Short bolt goes there. And then we got a couple of longer bolts. They go over here. Grab our little 1/4-inch ratchet with an 8mm socket. We'll tighten all these down. And that'll do that as far as the valve adjustment goes. Now we'll run this back up where it was. You can kind of see the marks on the cable where that was on the wire for the spark plug. Then we got a new spark plug. This is a Z9Y Champion plug. And we'll install it. I did pre-gap it. It gaps to 0.9mm. Not everything I do is metric, but a lot of this engine stuff is. So we'll put a new plug in it. Makes contact. Snug it up. Does not have to be tremendously tight. And we don't want to put this on yet because we got to put the cover back on. Before we put the cover on, we want to inspect this spark arrestor in the exhaust. Grab a screwdriver and see if we can get this cover off here. One on the top on the heat shield. There's one on the back side. Back here on the exhaust. Then there's one down on the bottom. Right down here. And once this heat shield's off, we'll set it down there. We're going to take this screw out. Then this comes off. This is the spark arrestor screen. You can see this one isn't too bad. Now I'm just using a wire brush to clean this up, kind of get down into it a little bit. You want to be pretty gentle with this because you don't want to tear the screen up. This isn't like I say, this is a 4-stroke. It's not a 2-stroke, so there's not going to be a whole lot of buildup in here. But just kind of clean it up. There is a baffle in here that moves the exhaust around the screen. Then this just sets back on here. It sets right down over that. And our screw goes back in. That's all that holds that on there. It's that one little screw. Snug it up. Once again, none of this stuff has to be ridiculously tight. We'll put our cover back on our exhaust, our heat shield. 2 of these bolts have big washers on them and 2 don't. This is one of them that does, and it goes down here. Tighten this one up, and we've already tightened the bottom one, so that takes care of that. Next thing we're going to do is put our shroud back on, our heat shroud. This sits like this. We got to make sure we get our kill wire up here and get it started in the right place. Make sure this is back out of the way a little bit. And this cover is just going to sit down over here. Now it's not quite in place yet. Got to get past our ground wire for our stop switch. Then we'll pull it down over the tabs in the back, just like so. This little wire goes on there. We'll hook it up in a little bit, and this is the spark plug. Goes just like that. There you are for that. Now we'll put our screws back in our shroud. All 4 of these are the same bolt, so it's just hard to mix them up. We'll set these back in. And our starter's back on. Now we still got the 2 bolts down here, so we'll grab those and stick those back in. As you can see, with just a couple of special tools, there really isn't any reason why you couldn't do this yourself, and it really needs to be done once in a while. Once again, these little 5mm bolts, they do not need to be very tight. Just like that. Now, we got our kill wire here. We'll run it back down through its hole. This was not routed as it should have been a while ago, so we will fix that as we go. That comes down like this. This wire connects into here, like that. Then I left our breather hose off so I could actually get in here and put this on a lot easier than it come off. It goes in there just like that. I'll bring this back. I'm going to set that down, and I'm going to just tighten up the inside bolt, which is the one I loosened. And the important part here is to make sure you have some slack in your throttle cable. And we do. It calls for an 1/8 to a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch, and we have that. Yeah, I know it's inches and not metric, but that is the way it was in the book, so that's how I did it. Like so. And that does the valves in here, the spark plug, also the spark arrestor in the exhaust. It does need to be cleaned once in a while to make sure it's as clean as it should be. And this is where you check the oil in this thing. It's got a dipstick in it, and it does use separate oil. It does not mix gas. You can see on Japanese products like this, you do not screw the dipstick in. You can see our oil levels right about there. So we're in good shape, and it's really nice looking. I changed this earlier this spring, not thinking I was going to do the rest of the tune-up. But now I have. Another thing that's on the list of stuff you should do is check the fuel filter. And to do that, we'll get a pick. And we'll reach in here and grab the fuel line. Simply pull it up. This is your fuel filter. It's the only fuel filter in this machine. And it lives inside the fuel tank. You can clean it by just spraying back through it, or you can replace it, whichever one you want to do. But that's where it lives. And the hose just allows it to flop around and get down to the lowest level of fuel that's in the tank. And we're about out of gas, so I'm going to put some gas in this, and then we'll fire it up. So while we're at it, got a new air filter. 17211-ZM3-000. And a quick shout out to the guys over at Lawn and Leisure and Lee Summit. They're the ones that got me the gasket and parts. They're my closest Honda dealer, even though it's not that close. Honda Power Equipment dealer. Once again, this goes on here, it just grabs on there, comes around, and clips into place. You want to make sure that it's all clipped in. The old style would fall off. This one doesn't seem to have that problem, so some stuff's fixed. Oh my goodness, we forgot to put the crankcase breather hose on. We'll pull this back off, and we'll slide this in here, and slide it up onto the crankcase breather port. Like that, and bring it down here and slide it on to the air filter. Try to do this so you can see. There we go, just like that. Then we'll put this back on again. Click. That's back on. All right, I'm gonna put some gas in this thing and we'll fire it up. You know, as this gets older, this cap is really easy to screw on crooked, and then it leaks gas like the dickens. So we want to make sure that's straight. Now this does have a primer bulb. I always pump it till it gets a little tougher than it was, and so I know there's fuel there. And we'll turn the kill on, choke, unchoke. There you have it. If we'd have changed the oil, that's a pretty inclusive tune-up there. Now we are going to check out the other end of this thing. We'll be right back with that. All right, This is the business end of this thing. This uses a straight shaft, and there's a set of gears inside here. This is just a typical head, weed eater head, nothing special there. But this is one of the most forgotten things about this maintenance on these weed eaters, is this is a port to put oil into this head. Take the screw out, we'll kind of wipe the junk away from it. Now this is, what do they call this stuff? Super Lube FS from Steel. Don't have any Honda stuff, but I've got this. You just simply put this on here and squeeze some grease into there. Like so. Doesn't take much. Nothing on this thing takes much. This holds less than 2/10 of a quart of oil. And then this doesn't hold much at all either. You just press it on there and you push it in there. We'll put our bolt in and then we'll finish cleaning that up. I don't want to knock anything in there. But if you want to get good life out of your weed eater, do this once in a while. And whatever brand it is, if it's a straight shaft, it's got a set of gears down here. Curved shaft ones, I don't know. Never owned one. Always had a straight shaft. And there's that. And we'll wipe it some mug. Get all that cleaned off, and that's pretty much that. This has decent string in it. And that pretty much winds up everything we're going to do to this. So I hope you enjoyed watching this. Subscribe to my channel, and we'll be doing lots more of this. Different power equipment stuff, maybe some motorcycle stuff, ATV stuff, whatever comes along. But we'll be doing some how-to videos, and I just want to show you that there's so much of this that you can do yourself with just a little bit of help. And hopefully these videos will help you out. And if you want to leave comments and tell me what you'd like to see next, I'd be happy to look at it and see what we can do. Thanks for watching.